Welcome to another episode of Athlete Things. Today we've got Sam, Steve, and Leanne, and today we're going to be talking about their first Worlds experience and the preparation behind everything going into their first international competition. So, Sam and Steve are both respectively prepping for Malta, and Leanne is prepping for later this year for Junior Worlds in Romania. So, first off, how have you guys started to think about Worlds prep? Because this is your first time, have there been any different sort of expectations going into this comp?
I'll go first. For me, I think I'm not treating it any differently in terms of like preparation, even just comparing most recently to like open nationals. Like I'm always trying to, put my best foot forward in training and try the hardest I can in training every single session. Obviously there's just a lot more of like kind of excitement and hype and expectation of myself to do the very best possible I can on the platform in 8-9 weeks in Malta. Given the nature of a world competition, my first time representing Australia, it's been a goal for 8 years. So there's definitely, I guess, a bit more pressure on myself and a lot more expectation of how I want to do being that first Worlds. But in terms of general training day to day, it doesn't feel any different to say when I was prepping for nationals. I guess what I've done probably myself in terms of the last kind of few months to kind of help take myself to the next level would just be focusing even more so on the little things. Me and Kelly had a discussion in terms of how I can get the most out of my training and keep improving. And like, that's one of the things was sleep. So like, I've put in work to adjust my work schedule and my kind of sleep lifestyle kind of schedule outside of training and work to make sure I'm getting as much sleep as possible. And even like this block, I'm definitely feeling a difference. Like I'm not waking up as sore, not waking up as tired, and I don't have to kind of auto regulate on some of these sessions in these like last 1-2 weeks as much as I would normally have to. So I'm basically getting a lot more output based off just focusing on good quality food, so prepping both my meals, lunch and dinner, and more sleep.
Yeah, it's forced you to be more accountable with like all the little things, right? How
Yeah.
long were you sleeping before versus now?
So it just wasn't consistent. So I'd have like early morning clients, and then like I'd struggle to get to sleep early. So there'd be like 2-3 mornings a week where I'd have to get up at 5:30, and then wearing my Whoop, like I'd be recording like 5-6 hours of actual sleep, even though I might be in bed for 7-7.5. Whereas now I'm trying to be in bed for at least 8 to 9, so I'm getting at least 7 to 8 hours of actual sleep.
Yeah.
And that's consistent across Monday to Sunday. Yeah. Whereas
Yeah, for
before it
sure.
was like, I'd have like a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday morning really early. And then like I just had no kind of routine or schedule. And then I'd feel it when it comes to like week 4, 5 in a block when I'm squatting and deadlifting heavy.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, food quality, like prepping, making sure I'm like prepping lunch and dinner. Whereas normally, I'd get like a, a ready to go meal or, something from a store. Whereas at the moment I'm trying to prep all my food just for more food quality.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like it's forced you to be a lot more accountable, right? Like paying attention to the little things definitely helps. How
Yeah, I
about
just
you,
knew
Leanne?
like
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you
yeah, I
go,
just knew
Sam.
like
Finish off.
going into my gym test, where I kind of did like a mock trial and peak and taper. And then even like open nationals with my injuries and stuff, I've left some kilos on the table, and I knew there was more that I could do. Obviously, programming strategies and working out, how to optimize my training and peak and stuff is a part of it. But I knew there was stuff that I was leaving that I could be better at, and that was, the other stuff outside of the gym.
Yeah, on your end.
On my end, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Leanne? It
Yeah, I
it, it does
guess.
seem like for you, Worlds Prep is a bit further along than the other two boys. So you've got a lot more time. And I guess in terms of mentality, where does that put you?
Yeah, I guess like looking at say nationals versus like prepping for worlds similar to Sam, like it doesn't really feel any different. The major changes for me, like this year and going into Worlds prep, is like obviously I'm not at uni right now, so I have a lot of more time to take care of externals because like I would tend to go into comp preps like because I was doing everything all at once, and I'd end up just burning out towards the end and getting sick every single time. So I think for me is a lot of it similar, like I said, similar to Sam, is taking care of externals, so that I can actually feel recovered and perform the best that I can in training. Um, yeah, so being so far out, it's not really like I'm feeling any different to maybe how Sam or Steve do. I guess because I train alongside them as well. So it's like I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm just training similar to them anyway. So I don't
Mm.
really feel like it's going to all of a sudden ramp up in the way that how I approach training. It's more just like I'm just training as hard as I can all the time, which I was before, but I just didn't have the capacity to recover enough,
Yeah.
which I think is the biggest thing this year. That's been the change.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
for you, Steve?
Um, yeah, I think for me, like obviously not much has changed in terms of my outlook in training. That's always going to be the same, has been for a very, very long time. But I guess the biggest thing was leading off the back of the last nearly 18 months of training has been I've been in pain, right? I haven't had a pain-free prep. I've been dealing with injuries since then, from November 2022. I've been sore, right? So kind of like what Sam said, like dealing with the externals. I had to do that early on, especially straight after nationals, because that was probably the worst. So that was where I started to tick every single box. So straight off that, it wasn't just like my sleep's already been pretty good. That wasn't something. Nutrition was a big thing. We've had to adjust my training schedule, obviously, as well, because I continue on a Tuesday. But also other things like getting up, making sure I get sunlight in the morning, making sure I have a good rhythm of sleep in terms of it being consistent when I go to sleep and wake up every single day. That, and I think a big thing of just recently has been going into a surplus, which I have not been in that whole time that I was kind of in pain as well. Because I've obviously cut for a long time in the competition, but I've never cut for a 5 p.m. weigh-in, which will be in Malta, which is huge for me because I've always sat. I don't like cutting a lot of weight because I know it's detrimental to my performance. And now we're going to go up to 77 to 78 kilos because we know that, well, I don't mind cutting the weight if I don't have to wake up and be around competition weight. Like I'm happy to do it the day of. It's doing it the day before and going to sleep and having to wake up a certain weight or go to sleep a certain weight, which was always the harder part for me because I've woken up for a 6 a.m. weigh-in before and being 74.5 kilos and had to, spit and like in a hot shower in the corner of the room for 3 hours before. So I'd get up at 3 a.m. really and just sit there spitting in the corner of the room, just like hot water flying everywhere and just hot air flying everywhere. Like I've done all that before and I just hated that. But this time it's kind of different because we know we have all day to do that. I don't mind doing that during the day and then going to compete. And I think at the same time, like the surplus is, I feel great. That's the biggest thing. The biggest change for training for me at the moment is I feel good. I feel like I can actually push again, which I haven't had in a long time. I'm not going into every session with kind of going in feeling like it's unexpected how I'm going to perform. I know that I'm going to be able to perform well. I have this excitement over training. I know that there's going to be like a fucking dogfight in Malta to get on that podium, which is fun. I love that. I love the pressure and the kind of rivalry that we have, even though I don't even know these other guys that I'm competing against. It's something that I've built up in my own head for such a long time. As well to be able to compete against, especially the best in Taylor. I've always wanted to compete against him, someone that I guess, look up to, but always seen as a competitor at the same time as a rival.
Yeah, like for sure. Like for all three of you guys, it's like your first time for Worlds. And for you, Steve, it's almost like the first time where you're going up a very stacked weight class, right? Because in Australia, you only have like say one or two competitors, whereas this time around, it's like the whole flight is your competitor.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the 74 kilo Group A or prime time, 730 kilos doesn't even get you in that now. And last year that was second. Like it's crazy this year. I think across the board in multi, like every single weight class is completely stacked.
Yeah,
for sure. I think out of what all three of you guys have said, like training doesn't seem to be the main thing that's changed in response to your prep for Worlds, right? It's more so how can you optimize everything around that to ensure that you can output as much as you possibly can as frequently as you can in training. So that's like getting sleep in, making sure your nutrition's covered. I know you guys are a big fan of using like technology to help assist that, right? Like Sam mentioned, you guys use the Whoop. And
yep.
How have you guys used that to kind of gauge or to help yourselves with your training and recovery?
So
Sam, you can go.
Myself, right?
Oh, we'll go,
Yes.
Sam.
Okay.
So I probably haven't been looking at closely as much the last few weeks. It's probably just mainly like accountability for me for sleep for one, because you're getting that basically pure data in terms of how much quality and quantity sleep you've actually had. And it also is good to track trends of like your total recovery score. So obviously, you get the red and yellow and green score, which can be good to look at. And then you look at that against kind of where you are at the block and measure your fatigue and stuff. But for me, it's more just like that extra little bit of accountability to how much sleep I'm getting.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Steve? How's it helped recently?
So I use it to tell me when to go to sleep, tell me when to go to bed. Like I'll use the coach on it. So if it has a time, right? It says like if you get like 100% sleep, you go to sleep at this time or go to bed at this time. I listen to it. I'll either go before it tells me to or like then on. Like I don't do anything prior. So I guess it sets me up for a wind down routine, right? Because I know what time I'm actually going to be heading into bed rather than just like, oh, I feel tired now, so I'm going to go to sleep. I had this routine set up because I just read what time it tells me, probably at like 7 or 8 p.m. And then I'm set, then I know when I'm going to go to sleep. But then outside of that, also like I use the relaxation, the breathing stuff. Also, that's on the app as well before I go to sleep, just so I can purely wind down and everything.
Yeah, for sure. And Leanne, do you use some sort of like similar technology as well?
Got the Whoop.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I'm a sleep queen. I love my sleep, but I find that it's really helpful to look at the quality. So a lot of it is like I've noticed that if I'm not having enough water like during the day, that like my quality of sleep goes down, like recovery goes down. Things like caffeine, if I have it anywhere past like 12 p.m., my sleep quality goes down. So that's kind of the best data that I've found from using it. Yeah, because I used to like have caffeine at like 5 p.m., having a full monster, and then like going to sleep thinking I was fine. But then now that I have this and I look at it, I'm like, wow, like it actually does make a difference. Like depending, you kind of don't realize it until you do.
Yeah.
That was another thing that I forgot about that I've also worked on as well, was just like caffeine intake. I used to slam or like rely on pre-workout too much. And that was obviously, a side effect of me having shit sleep. So, 10, 11 a.m. would rock around and I'd be feeling a little bit tired. So I just double scoop or 1.5 scoop and put like 400 or 500 milligrams, sometimes 600 milligrams on like a big Friday session. And then it's just like a vicious cycle because then you sleep like shit and then you don't sleep well. So you're tired again the next day. And then you got to do pre-workout or caffeine again as just as much for the next session. And then you just end up in this cycle of caffeine and shit sleep. And that was actually one thing I noticed wearing the Whoop as well, just for that accountability, but also like tracking sleep and looking at the quality of sleep increasing when I kind of made a conscious effort to reduce the caffeine intake. And definitely like notice a huge difference not being as reliant on caffeine and actually getting more sleep to feel more energized.
Yeah. It sounds like for all of you guys, the thing that Worlds has done for you has made you reevaluate like how can you further optimize everything outside of training? Because having a coach who's gonna write out the program for you, as long as you follow that in the gym, you're good. But it's like you can't just keep automatically adding load to the bar if all these other things aren't checked off.
Yeah, well, it's like
right?
We all love training, right? And we're all going to Worlds and we're all at this highest level for a reason. And that's because we put hard, consistent effort into training, and that's made us like kind of earn these positions that we're in now. But you can always do better. I think just in terms of the whole premise of like the athlete things and stuff is looking at like the 1%ers and the smaller things that you can do yourself to be better. And like your coach can keep you accountable on that. But at the end of the day, you have to look within yourself and just have discussions with yourself and be true to yourself in where you can improve.
Yeah, like when it gets high and high level, it's like the more you focus on the fundamentals and making sure everything's in check, that's where you start to see progress. And I think a lot of people when they're starting out and trying to go to that next level, they try look for like the secret or the thing that's going to be the unlock. But it's if your sleep's good, your recovery's good, nutrition, then training's going to follow that as well, assuming you're training hard, right? I think the one thing that does change, however, when you go from like local, state, national, but then going into international is travel times, right? So all of you guys are going to Malta and then Leanne's going to Romania. How have you guys looked into how time zone's going to affect performance, Sam?
So Steve and I are going pretty early over to Malta. So we leave on June 5th. I don't compete until the 17th. And then I think Steve competes on the 10th, I think.
Yeah.
So like by the time we get to Malta, I have a full week still in Malta to adjust to time zones and stuff. And obviously that's going to be of benefit to adjust to the time of the country. Still haven't decided or worked around the timing in terms of timing training from now, though. I know Steve has some more thoughts on that in terms of how he's adjusting training.
Steve?
I've worked it all out. I know what time. So I'll be competing 7 p.m. in Malta, which works out to be about 5 a.m. here. Something like that, 3 a.m. in here. So the biggest thing for me is I train middle of the day, kind of in the AM as well. So it's more like the biggest adjustment for me is that I'm going to be competing at the end of the day. That's where I'm finding the biggest adjustments. I was planning on adjusting my whole schedule around kind of training around this time. But the thing is, if I can do that to train at 5 a.m. in the morning, I need to make it the end of the day as well.
Yeah.
The 5 a.m. will need to be the end of the day. And then, but at the same time, I also don't train and I won't be competing with a whole body full of food. So I've got different opinions and well, not opinions, just like what I want to do at the moment. And I got a bit of time to kind of figure that out because it's about 4 to 5 weeks out when I kind of want to make a switch. But I'm thinking about not really changing too much because I know for a fact that I'm going to be cutting weight the whole day of competition. I won't be able to do anything else. I won't have a stomach full of food. I won't be good. I won't be hydrated until I recomp. So there's no point for me adjusting to the point where I'm going to be training at the end of the day, fully fueled. Although this could help my sessions, right? It's not going to be the same thing as what I've relied on so hard in training. Is I purposefully train, with a little bit of food, basically like a banana, and then I train. Nearly every single session is the same. Like I have essentially what I would have had prior to getting on the platform, in any competition, on every single training session, something that I replicated every single time is having the same amount of quantity of food inside my body before I start training that would replicate competition day. And I don't want to change so much of that.
Yeah, because otherwise it'll mess with predictability, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm in two minds because for one, like we both have that advantage that we're getting over there earlier. So we do have time to adjust to the local time. And also, like you said, Steve, just weighing up the pros and cons of both. Like obviously the pros of sticking to your regular training time are that, you know, the training environment, you have spots, you have people around you, higher arousal. For Steve, it's like the same amount of foods in his gut as to when he was going to be competing. I would be the same too. Like just after I weigh in, having just a meal, and then that's kind of similar to what I do by the time I train here as well, like that 10, 11 o'clock time. But I compete 12:30 local time, which is 8:30 p.m. here. So just at the back end of the day. So I think if anything, I'll just be adjusting training to the later end of the day, so I get used to training towards the back end.
Yeah. So it's this is all after like you're adjusting for the time zone, right? So that you've eliminated that problem because you guys are arriving early. I think that's like a special problem for us Australians, right? Like we had the conversation with Evie, and she was essentially saying because we're like from Australia and New Zealand, we have the most travel time generally out of most of the other countries. So it's almost a must do if you still want to maintain some sense of performance if you spend like a week earlier in the country that you're about to travel to. Yeah. And then you guys will you guys plan on sitting on an empty stomach up until the time you compete as well then, or have you not really thought about it?
What do you mean? So on competition day?
Yeah, so because you're going to be training later in the day once you are in Malta, you're going to be, and you said like you generally have like a banana before you train, and you cut weight. Is that something that you're going to have to hold on to until that evening session?
I suppose so, because I'll be on low gut most of the time that we're in Malta anyway, because I'll be cutting weight. Like this will be, I've cut from here before for morning weight, and then I've made it a weight cut, you know, easy. Well, not easy, but I made it. But it wasn't a 5 p.m. weigh-in, which I think like I'm happy to sit at 78 kilos for this cut. Like that will be easy for me. I think I've done 78 kilos for a 10 a.m. weigh-in before, and I made that quite easily as well. It was 74.00, but I made it when I made it, which was the first time. I didn't have to take 2 weigh-ins to make it. So that should be fine, all right? So I guess I'm gonna show up no matter what.
Yeah.
Like this is like an accumulation of years of training, countless injuries, you know, this resilient pursuit of something that I've wanted for a very long time. So like if I adjust my training and I adjust, you know, my intake before I train, or if I move it to the afternoon, it doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day, right? I know for a fact that as soon as like it's time to get on the platform and that bar's loaded, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be aroused. I'm like, this is it. But at the same time, for me, it feels like I've finally made it to the starting line.
Yeah. Do you want to say something, Sam, earlier?
I was just going to say, yeah, like just what I was saying before about weighing up the pros and cons. I think it's just for me about optimizing those last few heavy weeks of training as much as possible, right? Like if I'm going to be, you know, 1, 2, 3 weeks out, squatting the heaviest I've done, pulling the heaviest I've done, you know, benching the heaviest I've done, I want to be making sure that I'm heading into those sessions in the best position possible. And that's probably going to be keeping the regular kind of training time with my normal training environment. And then, you know, as much food as possible, or my normal kind of nutrition. Like Steve said, rather than changing too many variables or fucking around with it too much and taking that risk. So I think, just weighing up those pros and cons in that sense helped me make the decision of how I'm going to make the most out of those last few heavy weeks.
Yeah, like it sounds like you're weighing like how much can you compound while you're still training in Australia? And then once you do travel, it's like, should the decision be to try and mitigate the effects of the travel as much as you can, or just maximize your like adaptations as much as you can?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Like, that's a difficult thing because like no one knows, right? It's all going to be trial and error, especially it's the first time. It's not going to be perfect.
Too is like training, right? Like platform performance and what we do on the platform is an accumulation of what we do in training. It's all it is, right? So if we were to manipulate far too many variables within training, and then we get this downward trend in training, and rather than this upward trend, and we don't create sufficient adaptations because we've manipulated too many things, the performance on the platform is not going to be good. Like, so we have predictability on both ends. We have predictability in terms of like training times, and just like adjustment to time schedule, and time zones. But then we also have like this predictability in training right now with what we're doing. That means that we're performing good all the time, and that has this compounding effect, which will lead over till we get into Malta at the same time, where we can showcase all of that on the platform there. So it's like it's weighing up which has the risk versus reward, right? So, and I think an accumulation of like having good training sessions throughout the whole period, rather than just like mixing it up, is probably going to give us far more returns.
Yeah, sounds like if you're going to be weak here, you're going to be weak over there as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's, if you're weak in training, you're weak on the platform, right?
Yeah,
I guess it's like equipment as well. Like if you don't have a Eleiko bench, but you're consistently using the same bench every time and you're just allowing those adaptations on that bench, I feel like that's better rather than trying to like swap and change it all the time. I don't know.
Yeah, like the worst thing you can do is probably change too much, and then like you're constantly going back and forth and not having consistency in variables.
Yeah.
I think like I'll have my last heavy squat over in Malta, and I'll have to hit some like pull squats and other shit, my normal training, like straight off the plane after landing in Munich. Like that's gonna fucking suck either way, and I'm gonna have to just get up, bite down the mouth guard and get it done. So like, changing too much in the weeks leading up to that, it's just, I don't think it's worth it, because I'm gonna have to get up and fucking put a big squat on my back after sitting like a bloody folded lawn chair for 30 hours. So it's just about optimizing everything as much as possible,
and then accepting whatever comes after.
Yeah, that's right.
Touching on what Steve said, like, I mean, you can control all these variables, but then at the end of the day, it's going to come to an accumulation of all this for a long period of time, right? And it seems like it's almost like the mentality of having it rather than the actions, and the actions will come after thinking that way for such a long time, right? And I guess all this can still relate to people that aren't going to an international competition, despite the international travel. If we eliminate international travel and you're someone who's trying to go from, say, locals to a state competition or state to a national, you can still apply all of these things that Steve, Sam, and Leanne are talking about, which is like being very, very meticulous with the fundamentals, monitoring your sleep almost on a day-to-day basis, and like trying to find an extra hour per day, which is going to compound. Being in a surplus, looking ahead and seeing like, is there going to be an expected performance deficit because of whatever reason, right? And there's no secret, and it's just, this does take effort in planning and then training itself, because everyone does want to train hard, but no one wants to like recover. Everyone just wants to down 400 milligrams of caffeine until it doesn't work.
I think it's just about like being selfish, right? Like, we train 3, 4, 5 hours a day, 4 or 5 times a week. We compete 2-3 times a year. So no matter what level you're at, whether that's local, state, national, international, those competitions, you want to be selfish and you want to do as much as you can to make sure you're prepared as possible. So like that's, if it's hour, 2 hour drive away, book a night away, get to the location early, fucking don't fuck around the day before a comp and watch 10 hours of powerlifting and not eat properly or go to bed late, like be selfish and make sure you're spending all that energy and time on yourself. So when you do have those 1, 2, 3 comps a year, it's making all that hard training worth it, right? Instead of just fucking it up at the very last minute.
Yeah, for sure. And Steve, you're one of the few who are coaching athletes aside from yourself on the world stage, right? And so touching upon this like, I guess, spectrum of needing to be like selfish versus selfless, how have you kind of balanced that? Because work is very intertwined with, yourself as an athlete. So how does that play out?
So nothing really changes, right? For them, we're getting them ready for another competition. It just happens to be well. It doesn't change anything. I've had my other athletes message me and say, I know world is so big for you. If you want, I can back off on sending you so many videos, and stuff like that. And I said, like, no, like my job doesn't change just because as an athlete I'm going to worlds, right? Because if you put me in any other position, work wise, I can't. You're not taking time off before the fucking event. You take time off for the event. So for me, it's like every time that someone said that to me, I'm like, no, just like I'm still doing my job the whole time, and I'm doing my job while I'm there, I'm doing my job while I'm away. Nothing changes for that. So in terms of like coaching, like work doesn't change at all. The way that I work, the way that I work, obviously, because you're an athlete that works with me. And for the people that coaching that are going to work, like it's just the same, monitoring things week to week, day to day, communicating as much as we can, and just I think that there's this new level of, I guess, motivation, right? That's kind of like the early days again. I think for us, it feels like this excitement around training. We're going to something that we've never done before. So, while I'm their coach, I'm there as an athlete with them as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, like I can use yourself and myself as an example. Last year when we both prepped for the same competition at the same time last year. And while I'm your coach, I was letting you push me as an athlete while I was pushing you as an athlete as well. So we're doing that at the same time. Like, yeah, both doing phenomenal, like ready to go. And I think, just that new excitement around training, because we're almost venturing into the unknown.
Yeah, for sure. And Leanne's like chilling, like she's watching this all unfold before she starts her prep for Worlds. So you essentially get a double prep, Leanne.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, they'll be gone for, I don't know how long you guys are going for, but I'll be fine. Just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, for sure. And then once they return, you're gonna have a team that's gonna be backing you as well.
Yeah. It's definitely a good environment to be in, like prepping for a big competition.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as well, like for people who are wanting to like take care of their externals more, like you don't have to go and get an external device like a Whoop. Like it's very simple to just tick the boxes by actually taking more, I guess, looking into it more rather than just like going with the flow kind of thing. Like actually just, tracking, wake up, track how much sleep you're having. You don't have to go and pay for something to do it for you to still see results. Yeah.
Yeah, like it makes it easier. Yeah, exactly. Just makes it a little easier, but the work still needs to be done and actually getting to sleep, getting to bed early. That's the hard stuff. Because
exactly.
without the world's prep as the catalyst, there's like you guys said, that extra sense of motivation and urgency to get these boxes ticked is there, and it forces your lifestyle to mold to meet the challenge.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So like for me, it had to change right after nationals, right? You watched me the day of nationals, the night after. We were both in the same fucking mindset. We both felt like something needs to change here. We
yeah, we're both
sat up,
depressed.
depressed, man, embarrassed, everything. Like we sat up all night, like didn't really sleep, right? I used to even sit outside for like 6 hours by myself until like the sun came up. So it's been since that moment, everything just shifted. And I think now I've done the hard stuff, the shitty stuff with the rehab, and not knowing how things were going to go. Like it was hard the last probably 6 months up until when I competed at the start of this month. Like leading up to that was rough. Like I just didn't know how I was going to feel. I won't wake up sore, shit like that. But then something just like kind of flicked right when like the nominations for Australia got put in. Something just turned. It's like, okay, it's happened now. Like this is, like I said, this has been this resilient pursuit of mine to just get here for so long. And like I said, I finally feel like I'm at the starting line, but it's there now. It's solidified, and it's something that I have to do and I have to prepare for. So I'm in a state of mind again where I don't give a shit what I put my body through. I'll literally break myself if I have to. And I'm going to do everything else around that because I had to do those little external things to get my body right from rehab, right? I had to start ticking those boxes so long ago. It's not just because I was on that non-list. I was already doing all that. And now we're on that, so it's solidified. I have this like, just that fucking dog, right? Where I'm just like, okay, let's fucking go. Every single day I wake up and I'm like, I just want to train. Well, I got my rest days now, and I'm like, what? I want to fucking train again. Like, I don't care if I have to squat 4 times a week, deadlift 4 times a week. I don't care. I'll fucking do it right now. Like, I want to train every single day right now. I'm excited by training, and I want to get out there all the time. Even when I'm going to sleep now, after my sessions, I'm like, that was like, you trained well. That was a good session. We haven't had this in a long time. And I think I already touched on this with you individually, Danny, outside of like conversation like this. Like I told you, like I finally have that excitement around training, that I feel good, things are moving, and I feel like I'm ready again. I feel like I'm deserving of the spot all over again, rather than I felt almost undeserving ever since that performance in nationals. I haven't felt like I deserved to be there. I don't deserve to have the labels that I have that people put that give me in Australia. Like I feel like I'm undeserving of that. I felt like that. But now again, I'm starting to feel like I have this, not just momentum in training, just this momentum within myself where I just feel good. And like I'm like, and you know me, like I will, if I just like kill myself, like I'll do it. Like I'll push until I fucking go. Like I don't care. And I feel that all over again. And it's been a long time since I felt that.
Yeah, feels like you don't have to force it, right? Like that excitement is just natural because it's Worlds and it's your first time,
Yeah.
and it's exciting. It's been a long time since you've been put in a situation where you can feel that, because I mean, after doing this sport for so long, it's 3 movements and it's basic. The only excitement you get out of it then is like the matchups and I guess the external things, right? And the context behind why you're competing.
Yeah.
So
And it's the monotony of training too, right? Like it is boring, and we do the same thing, and we don't want to, like I'll say this to people I'm listening, right? If you want to be competitive, it's going to take a long time to get there. Like it's taken me years to get to Worlds, even though like I should have essentially went 4 years ago. It's taken me a long time to get here because of injuries, setbacks, and everything like that. But if you want to get to the top level, right, and you're going to go through that hard slog. You're going to go through that phase where you're just not enjoying training. You don't want to get up for it. You don't want to fucking do it. Like it's same. Like you got to do. It's Monday again. I got to do the same thing I did last Monday. Okay, it's boring. But it all compounds and leads into something special, which for us now as well.
and you finally feel it.
Yeah, and then you feel it again. I feel like it's those first few weeks of being in the gym ever. Like I'm lifting weights. like, let's go.
Yeah,
it's exciting.
You can definitely see that with Steve. He's got that dog side of him at the moment, but he's also got that excitement, like kind of, for lack of a better word, like cheerful side of him too. So he's got that like real switched on kind of dog side of Steve, but then he's also laughing, smiling, enjoying training, and that's really good to see. Whereas sometimes it sways where he's just gone full dog, full intense, no one talk to me, or he's just going chill and having a good time. It's really good to see at the moment. He's in like a kind of middle ground where he's fucking full focus, switched on, but then he's also enjoying it too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I feel that too, and I haven't had that in a very, very long time. Like I haven't had both sides. Like I've either been in pain, so I'm just like, don't talk to me. I want to fucking just be on my own, or I'm benching, so I'm just mucking around.
yeah. Talking to me like shit.
Yeah. Sounds like
I know I'm in a good spot too. Like when I have that excitement for training, like when Saturday squats are finished and I'm thinking about deadlifts on Tuesday and I can't stop thinking about deadlifts, I know I'm in a good spot. Or like, when I'm thinking about, the squat I've got this week on Saturday and I'm excited for it and I can't wait for it, that's when I know I'm always in a good spot for training as well, similar to Steve. Even at the moment, like I'm excited to pause squat, I'm excited to high bar, I'm excited to milk kind of every single opportunity I can out of training to keep getting better. It's normal to have those little lapses where, you fucking chill a little bit on your pause squats in the middle of the week or whatever it is. But at the moment, I'm finding, again, like Steve, the nominations have come out, my name's on the list, and you just have that extra little bit, that extra 5-10% where, I'm trying to milk every little opportunity I can out of every single set. Like it'll be a back down set on my pause squats like 180 kilos, and I'm like, I've got to make this fucking move fast, no matter what weight it is in the bar. Get
around me, boys.
Yeah, like get around me. It's 185 kilos, but I've got to make it fucking move. I think it's just that it's becoming more and more real and it's becoming more and more exciting. And I think that's definitely going to compound and build over the next 8 weeks.
Yeah, like it's so infectious as well. Like I can feel the energy coming from you guys, and that's going to get fueled into training, and that's going to just keep compounding all the way into Worlds. I think like pulling it back to say not just international, but I think the reason why it works so well for you guys is you guys haven't faced like a challenge in so long. Like you do have challenges where it's, the challenge is like almost just getting to the platform and going through some sort of adversity. But this is exciting in the sense like it's the reason you came into the sport for the very first time.
Yeah,
the first reason why you did this for the first time. So it's like almost seeing the dream come true for you guys.
Yeah,
definitely. I think I spoke before on a roundtable about like arousal with like visualization, but I'm having more and more of these moments where I can just like, I'll be sitting on the couch at night time and I can just visualize myself walking out for my final deadlift or my opening squat, like all those little moments, because it's something that, we've dreamt of for so long. Or even like, Ryan Lapidat saying my name on the commentary when I first come out for my first squat, just like there's all those like little kind of things. Becoming.
That was fast.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to say, but yeah.
You're right, but Danny, I think Sam and I are in the same kind of boat, right? We don't particularly have much competition here in Australia. Sam's way ahead of everyone else in the 120s.
Yeah.
I'm well ahead of everyone in 74s. This year anyway, last year, and it's like we don't really have that head-to-head rivalry. Whereas like now, it's like we're going into a competition where neither of us are at the top of the list. So we get that underdog status again. And I love being the underdog, right? That you get to work towards beating someone. That underdog status, I think, is so underrated sometimes. That just having that and just knowing that you're chasing someone, so it pushes you even harder all the time. I haven't felt the need to do that in such a long time. Like even just my bench on Tuesday, right? I was like, fuck, deadlift me, I'll bench 170. I got to bench more than that, so I benched 172.
Yeah.
Like just because I seen that as I was walking out to my session. And I wasn't even, oh, that was plus 7.5 on the week before on my single. And I was only planning on like taking 2.5 jumps.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's competitive. It's fun. It's
Yeah,
funny.
it's very fun.
That's what I was going to say. I think for a lot of time, in my early stages of like powerlifting, I wasn't competitive. And then I got stronger, and I'm probably at a point, now where I am competitive nationally, but there just isn't that kind of pool around me in the 120s at the moment. So I think this is the first time really in like 7-8 years where I'm actually going into a competition against fucking 20 other people. Because like, there's obviously, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever it is, but everyone on that platform is going to be charging for the highest spot possible. So like, I'm nommed 19th, but I want to make a jump to 12th, 11th, 10th. And there's going to be 6, 7, 8 other athletes that are also going to be trying to go for 12th, 11th, 10th. So it's really exciting. And that's another kind of motivation too, because I want to get as high as possible on that ranking. And it's the first time that I've had competition that close.
Yeah, it's not going to be given to you.
I'm in a funny spot to be in Group A with how close it is. And like how crazy the prime time of the Group A lifting is across the board. Like I'll probably close out squat and then open deadlifts. Like it's just the way that it is. It's fucking crazy, and I'm already visualizing in my head of like the way that I can go around this in terms of numbers to be able to, like, there's a high possibility that I'll be top 2 subtotal going into deadlifts, but then I'm going to open deadlifts. So it's just like working numbers out like that too. And I think, although like we're trying to say like, oh, don't fixate on numbers, but I kind of know how much I need to be able to lift to put myself in the best position possible. And I've already told you, Danny, what I'm going to be hitting and everything is realistic. Like I don't see anything being much of an issue. It's just like not missing on that platform as well is so big. Because if I miss, I can jump from second or third or first all the way down to like fucking 15 without close leads.
Yeah. And sounds like you're almost like reconciling how your mental state's going to be like fluctuating as the day happens, right?
Yeah.
Like it's already been thought out. Like by the time I get to deadlifts, I just need to be humble and just get my 3 for 3 kind of thing, and I'm gonna win, or I'm gonna be put in the best position.
I'm not gonna close out that fly. We've seen how much those guys live. Like, like I said before, like Dylan Miyagi, fucking junior, he pulled 330 last week before. I'm not gonna pull 330 kilos by June. I know that. So, but I will have one of, if not the biggest subtotal going into the list. So I just need to keep myself in a position that keeps me up there.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess then, like, do you guys have anything that you want to impart on people? Because like I think the most powerful thing that you guys have brought up is this sense of excitement and joy in your training again. And for aside from 8 people that are selected from Worlds, not a lot of people are going to have that excitement for an international competition. So do you have anything that you feel like could impart this sense of excitement into a prep?
I think that having like a good training environment is very important. So like having people around you that, whether they're doing the same competition or you're both prepping for nationals, that kind of thing, that way you can actually push each other. Or if you see people who you're versing and you can push to what they're doing, I think that really helps. Yeah.
Sam, Steve?
Yeah, I think it's got to come from within, right? Like you've got to have that kind of deep desire to be better and achieve whatever lift you want across squat, bench, and deadlift. I guess I've probably said this a few times now, but if you want to like kind of go far, you just got to play the long game, right? Like it's a marathon, not a sprint. You just got to consistently put in effort every session, every week, and then eventually, you'll achieve what you never thought was possible. And yeah, without being too cheesy, but you got to enjoy it, right? You got to have that training environment, like LJ said. You got to talk a bit of shit. You got to have some banter. Like, training's got to be fun, and enjoyable, and that's also something that can really help, carry you through a prep as well.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, I guess it's just depending on what the other two said, understanding that it is a long game. It's gonna suck at points, right? Dude, you're gonna deal with shit, setbacks, injuries, all that sort of stuff. But you'll find a way to hang around. You'll end up where you set yourself to end up, right? You set yourself up in the right place, the right position. You keep doing everything, and then understanding, because we've been, Sam and I, Leanne's a junior and quite new to the sport still, but Sam and I have been lifting for a long time. It's taken us this long to realize how important like these small external variables play a part in like the bigger picture. So if there's anything that I can say to like anyone out there, right, like, don't hold yourself back by trying to be lean or sitting at maintenance calories or in a deficit, right? Don't hold yourself back by fucking playing video games all night, staying up with your friends, and not sleeping properly. Like, don't hold yourself back by not moving enough, or just like sitting around and being fucking lazy and not accounting for your own nutrition. Like, if you have said that you want to take it as far as you possibly can, to worlds and be one of the best, with like right now, like I'm telling you, tick the external factors, right? Tick those boxes now, because that's all going to compound over the next 2, 3, 4 years, and you'll be able to get to where we are much earlier in your career than we are.
And then it'll be fun. That's when the fun starts.
And then it'll be fun. Like, it's gonna get boring while you're doing that. Like, you're gonna feel like a fucking robot. Like, I feel like a robot every day. But I also love that feeling, and I love the feeling of competitiveness. And this is what we do it for. We compete in powerlifting to compete. Well, I do. Right? I do powerlifting to compete, and the competition's coming back, the excitement's coming back, and it's all because of all these small compounding things that have led to this prep.
Yeah,
and just
sure.
Like I said earlier, just having that resilient pursuit and just not giving up. Like, I've broke bones, bled, cried, fucking everything for this sport, and it's all coming together now.
Well said. And it finally feels finally feels worth it.
Yeah, it does.
That's the feeling I get from you. Yeah.
Yeah, every single sacrifice that I've made, it feels worth it now.
For sure. All right. Well, thanks for sharing everything, guys. I think it was a really good chat to hear your mentality, especially prepping for your first international. I'm very excited to see how you guys play it out.
All right. Sweet. Thanks, Danny.
Thank you.